represent those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Don't hit snooze, it's Sunday. And every Sunday morning starts with Out Live on Fox Sports Radio. Now live from downtown Las Vegas, it's Out Live's Brian Feldman and former UNLV quarterback Caleb Herring. Live at Kickers Gaming and Sports Bar. Free donuts and orange juice, plus Bloody Mary and mimosa specials during the show. Out Live on Fox Sports Radio. Sunday mornings 8 to 9. Broadcasting live from Kickers Gaming and Sports Bar. 931 Las Vegas Boulevard North in Washington.
Kickers Gaming and Sports Bar is a new standalone sports bar and gaming facility in downtown Las Vegas. Located just down the road from Cashman Field at 931 North Las Vegas Boulevard, Kickers is the perfect place to watch and hear all your favorite games and sporting events. A unique and intimate atmosphere that includes 17 big screens and 15 gaming machines. Kickers caters to hockey fans with a center ice package, and when our Vegas hockey team is playing, enjoy $2 shots throughout the game and free shots every time they score. For football season, Kickers has the NFL ticket and is a Green Bay Packers bar. During every Packers game, Kickers gives away jerseys and raffles off Packers gear. Kickers is also the place to go for UFC fights and pay-per-view events because they show them all. And Kickers pays it forward like no other establishment in Las Vegas, welcoming first responders and frontline workers with 50% off their tab all day, every day. Follow Kickers on social media to stay informed about all their events, viewing parties, and happenings. One visit and you'll become a regular. Check it out today. Kickers Gaming and Sports Bar, downtown Las Vegas at 931 North Las Vegas Boulevard.
I'm actually joining on Freebird today. I didn't play music today. I kind of thought about it last second. But what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer. I see a lot of guys watching on social media today, whether that be from Twitter or YouTube. I'm not sure. You guys can comment. I would love to bring you guys on. I'll have your comments displayed on the screen, and we can talk about we had a lot to go over today. I'm going to try to focus actually on some NFL free agency, but I do have in the studio with me right now Brian Feldman, who you just heard with Rent It, Buy It, Refi It. You are on microphone too. Sorry, I do produce my own shows, but what's going on, Brian? Thank you for joining the show on this busy little delivering sports here. I'm not really sure why, but it is.
You know what? It's a good thing, Spencer, and it's a tribute to what you've been doing, man. You know your stuff, and people are listening. You've got a voice, so you'll use it, and hopefully in the right way, delivering sports. And sometimes people aren't happy with the things you say. Sometimes they love them. And today, I imagine if the UNLV brass is listening, they might not be mad at you, but they might not let me in buildings anymore if I get my opinion out.
What I really hope is who I just recently had an interview with. If you are, I hope you enjoy the show. But no, so yeah, we are going to start with UNLV talk here because UNLV is now without another head coach for whatever reason we do not know the answer. But TJ Otzelberger, the basketball coach, he's gone. He's going to Iowa State. I don't know if that means that he was going to be fired and he felt pressured and he just kind of took another job and this looks better for him, or what it may be. But here we are once again. UNLV is looking for a new head coach. How did we get to this point once again, Brian?
Well, TJ Otzelberger, if you can get out especially after what had happened here this season, you jump on it. And TJ Otzelberger has a history, I think 8 years at Iowa State as an assistant. His wife was an All-American athlete at Iowa State. He's got a lot of ties there. My question, and it makes perfect sense, and I talked to a good friend of mine who is on Fox Sports National, Bernie Fratto, who had filled me in on a lot about TJ and why it made sense for the hire for them. But I still, Spencer, I look and I think if I'm an alumni and a booster of Iowa State, I am like, what the hell when I look at what this guy's production has been the last years. Now you want to look at his time at South Dakota State as a Jackrabbit head coach. Yeah, he did a pretty good job there. That's how he was elevated to the UNLV position. But this season, and I'm sorry, yeah, it was a COVID season. You can't even describe what happened, but everybody was affected by it. And it was a really good opportunity for UNLV to establish a presence in the Mountain West Conference. And not only didn't they do that, Spencer, they scheduled some complete patsies that to me was almost an embarrassment. A couple of the wins that they got, scheduling teams, and no offense to the teams, and I don't even need to mention them that they scheduled, but the point is UNLV did it so they could beat the hell out of you and get a couple more wins and look good. Other than that, you had a win over Utah State in a game that Utah State didn't play well in. And and you had a win over Kansas State that is a Power 5 conference D1 program. But in my years of watching basketball, which dates back to probably about 1979, it's the worst Kansas State team I've ever seen. So to say that that's a quality win this year, no. A lot of teams beat Kansas State. A lot of teams beat Kansas State. I could say it a third time, Spencer. So I mean, it is really mind blowing to me that we are sitting here talking about TJ Otzelberger going to Iowa State. He does not deserve the position. Iowa State is a dumpster fire as far as what they were this year. A shade of themselves, a decent basketball tradition dating back to a guy that is available to coach right now and lives in the state of Nevada, to Larry Eustace, back to 1990, Coach of the Year, when he took the Iowa State Cyclones to the Elite Eight with Marcus Fizer, a great team. I actually was at the game that Michigan State, who won the national championship that year, beat Iowa State at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Michigan. And that was great. Fred Hoiberg was a great coach for Iowa State that took them to several tournaments. I do not know what they're thinking of this move, other than the tenure that he had there, other than the fact, there is a lot of ties. But boy, when you say politics is everything, this would be one of those cases that it's a prime example of, Spencer. I can't imagine it in any way, shape, or form being a good move for Iowa State, because they're going to have to pay this guy 7 figures, because that's what that division and that conference demands of a player. He was the highest paid player coach in the Mountain West Conference, which to me was a slap in the face of guys who have done it for years in the Mountain West Conference and are established, successful coaches like a Leon Rice at Boise State. How is he getting paid more than that guy? Steve Alford, who didn't do great at UCLA. I can't say he didn't do great. He did lousy at UCLA, but he's still a huge name coach that was heavily sought after a couple of years ago when he was at New Mexico. He's making more money than him, which is an absolute crime. And how about Craig Smith at Utah State? That guy has done nothing short of miraculous things at a school that nobody even really knows about. When you think of Utah, you don't go beyond Brigham Young or Utah University. And now you've got Utah State that really would have qualified for the tournament for the 3rd straight year. Last year, of course, there was no tournament, but they got in this year as an at-large bid, made it all the way to the conference championship game and played a very formidable San Diego State team. So how is he? And then Brian Dutcher really puts together one of the greatest defenses every year, not just in the Mountain West, a defensive, a top-ranked defense every year in the country. Granted, he's playing lesser talent, but still, he is a great defensive mind. Learned that from Steve Fisher, who was there for eons. And how in the world was Otzelberger making more than all of them? I don't know. And again, and I'm letting you take over the mic, Spence, because I'm done ranting. It makes me sick. How in the world is this guy going to go make 7 figures at Iowa State and leave UNLV again in worse condition these years? It's like the 6th head coach in like 10 years. Unbelievable.
Well, this wouldn't be the very first ever time we've seen a head coach go from UNLV to be successful. We were on the phone. We talked about Lon Kruger, and David Rice, we talked about, was probably a lot more successful than people would like to give him credit for, at least scouting wise. And I don't know. It's one of those things, right, where he probably was about to get fired. I mean, I think that's how bad this season was. So I guess in this way, he kind of keeps his dignity. How he gets an upgrade, I'm not sure. But we also saw the Texas Tech coach come here, see the facilities, and run north the other way after essentially signing a contract. It's at some point, it has to be UNLV. I don't know, because not every coach you're going to sign is going to be good. That's impossible. No franchise has ever just signed back-to-back great coaches that take you on to the NCAA tournament and everything like that. So if TJ does become successful at Iowa State, this would be the biggest meltdown in UNLV history, which it already is, as we know football had 0 wins last year, and the guy is just a hot mess as well. The coach won't talk to any of us. We would love to have him on the radio show to talk about last season. Some of us wouldn't even torch him. I wouldn't. I would just be curious to know if he came on my show, like, in your opinion, what were some of the things you thought were good, what were bad, what can we expect from the future? He wouldn't even answer those kinds of questions, which worries me that he doesn't have the answers to them. But again, we talked about this on Out of Line all the time, but UNLV has to make a change, not just from a player standpoint or a coach standpoint, just from a fundamental level, from the board of directors and the way the school is conducted. Because I don't think I've talked about this on this show, and I want to, because you guys are locals listening to this. I went to UNLV. I graduated from UNLV with an accounting degree. I was there all 4 years, had a minor in Chinese. I was ingrained in many parts of the school. It's not a college. It is. I'm going to have a degree, which I still don't have yet, by the way. I have my e-diploma. Great. I mean, it's fine. I don't really need it, but still, it's kind of annoying that I graduated, last semester and I still don't have my paper diploma with me. But what I'm trying to say is the buildings look like prisons. They're ugly, except for the hospitality building. If you're a player, if you're a coach and you walk through the school, and definitely nobody at the school would be able to identify TJ Otzelberger walking around, Bryce Hamilton might be the only person I think people would take a second glance at if he was in your class or, in the student union, simply because he's so tall. That's a problem because kids want a college experience. I wanted a college experience. I grew up in Mississippi and I went to one game. I went to an Ole Miss Auburn game. And it was one of the best experiences of my life as a young adult, just to see how excited people were to go into the stadiums. And there was just buzz around young people. When me and you go to UNLV games before the COVID pandemic hit, I don't think there was a single college student in there. It was the season ticket holders who remember when the UNLV was good and they bring their kids with them. People my age are not going to the game. And until that changes and until people are excited to go back to UNLV, we're going to be doing this every year. We could hire whoever as head coach, and I think that should be Luke Walton when he gets fired from Sacramento, and they should pay him whatever they want just because he's a name. I'm not saying he's a great head coach. He really isn't, but I think he'd be better in the college scene. It's sad because I want UNLV to be good. We get to go to the game, so that would be fun just on a fundamental level. But I want to be proud of my school, and I don't like to associate with them, period. It has nothing to do with my teachers, by the way. I had great teachers. If you guys are listening, I don't know if you're in your cars. I don't know if you listen to the show. It's just the school from a fundamental level. It's sad.
Spencer, it is. And I feel bad for you. We've talked to Caleb Herring, the former last quarterback to take the team to a bowl game, who's been the coach on Out of Line for a long time, switched his schedule around. So right now he's on a temporary leave and Spencer gets to fill in for him, which I'm really happy about. We get a chance to banter every Sunday morning, but Spencer, it really is. It's a shocker. I mean, I jokingly, but seriously, that's almost an oxymoron, but on the show on Sunday said that, there's no school that probably was happier about a pandemic than UNLV, because with the pandemic, they had about the same amount of fans in the stands as they would have had without one. And so this makes it, they can sit there and say, well, the pandemic, when really, no, that's almost what the building looked like before the pandemic. And it is because of the product they are putting on the floor. And what's so sad right now is, Tony Sanchez, again, I want to say, was a really good guy and an excellent high school coach. Was excellent in California, came to Gorman, and he continued to keep Gorman as a national powerhouse at the high school level. I think he should have probably went into college as a coordinator and worked his way up and learned the college game, the psyche of the college athlete. He didn't do that. He jumped right in out of high school as a head coach. It is very difficult to make it from high school. It is a big jump, just like it's a big jump from college to the pros, and not a lot make it. And but Tony Sanchez was an incredible community leader, and Tony Sanchez was able to, out of a relationship, get the Fertitta Center built, a $30 million complex, one of the nicest in the country, that is on the campus at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And that alone should be a recruiting element. When you look at some of the bigger universities, I know that the workout facility here in Las Vegas is better than the one at Michigan State University, where I graduated from, and yet you can't use that to recruit. Not only that, your football team is now playing in one of the most state-of-the-art facilities in the world in Allegiant Stadium. Aerodynamic, it is just a beautiful facility, Spencer. We've been in there a few times watching football games, and it is like, wow, to be able to use that to recruit should also be a help. And again, no matter what, the Thomas and Mack Center may have been around for a while thanks to Jerry Tarkanian, but again, that is an incredible basketball facility, a great facility to watch a game in, and I can imagine as a collegiate athlete and a basketball player how fun it would be to play in that building. And yet you can't recruit at this university with all of that. It is really difficult, and you got to go from the top down. And the top, of course, would be Keith E. Whitfield right now as the president of the college, a new president. You got to give him some credit. Let's see what he's going to do. I know that right now our current athletic director is lobbying for her job back, when a little while ago she took her name out of the hat at UCLA. That still makes me want to vomit, because we know she wasn't getting the job, and she took her name out of the hat as soon as she knew she had no chance of getting the job. But again, Keith Whitfield, what is he? He's a seasoned university administrator and a prolific scholar in fields of psychology, health, and aging. I don't hear sports in there. Okay, no offense to him whatsoever, but he's not a sports-minded individual, and he very well might extend the contract of Desiree Reed-Francois, which to me would be an astronomical mistake. And I'm sorry, I really like her as a person. She's been accommodating. Nice, not that doesn't come on my show, but probably because I'm out of line. But the truth of the matter is, as a person, she's fine, and I'm never should this be a personal thing. I am strictly speaking from a sports standpoint. This woman may be the worst athletic director I have ever seen in my life. And I said before her, Tina Kunz and Murphy, it couldn't get any worse. She was better. I mean, the thing she'll live with forever was firing a coach, being pressured to fire a coach in Dave Rice in the middle of a season, which was a huge mistake. And I know they look back on that now. But again, this is something that has to be corrected. It has to stop. It has to start from the very top. And I sure hope they don't give her credit for TJ Otzelberger getting elevated to a D1 Power 5 conference program in Iowa State, because she does not deserve credit for that. It is strictly based on his tenure and his ties to that university. I think it's a mistake, and I think in 3 years he'll be in the unemployment line. I don't see him turning that program around. And Spencer, for you and all other UNLV graduates out there, hang in there. I want to have faith. I want to believe as the populace grows in Las Vegas, as things grow, and there is a stadium, that somehow things will get better. I just don't know. I'm not sold on Marcus Arroyo at all in the first year of his body of work. The UNLV football team may be the worst I've ever seen. Again, you have to take into account the situation, the times, and I do that. And it's his first year. You don't like giving anybody a pass, and I understand that, Spencer, but I give a guy a pass who just started in a pandemic season and say, give him 1 or 2 more years. I like to give coaches 4 years. I say, just like a college athlete, it's a 4-year scholarship. Give them 4 years, because by the 4th year, it is their team, and they should be allowed that. I thought Marvin Menzies was given a raw deal only because I think he deserved 1 more season to get that 4th season. But you know what? TJ Otzelberger wasn't on the hot seat. He would have had another year, maybe 2 more. But my God, Spencer, something has got to change. And I hope Keith Whitfield really takes a look at the situation, gets involved on the sports level, and realizes that that is a big part of revenue. Make the boosters and the alumni happy. Fire her.
True.
Clean house, and let's turn this program and this city around with a good college product, which they used to have. I can imagine that right now, Jerry Tarkanian's bones, if you could see in his casket, is a mummy, because he's turned over in his grave so many times.
I agree with you, and we can talk about this forever, but it's so depressing. I would like to talk about something that is actually nice, and something I haven't talked about in the show for a while. But we are local here, so I want to talk about the Golden Knights with you. You know a lot more about the intricacies of the team. They're just rolling right now through whatever it is, whoever they're playing. I know they play in the worst division in hockey right now, like pretty much bar none. I don't think anyone's even close, but they're taking care of business. We talked about this on Out of Line, but I want to talk about it again. Is that a bad thing for them that they're playing not horrible? Like, they're still NHL teams, of course, but it's good for them to do this. But when it comes to playoff time, will they be a little soft coming into it, and could it really hurt them in the long term?
Well, Spencer, I don't think you're giving the West Division enough credit. You are right. At the bottom of the West Division, there are some bad teams. The Ducks are horrible this year. The Sharks, they blew a 3-1 lead with 10 minutes to go in the game on Wednesday night. I was there and watched it. It happened to be some of the 10 of the most exciting minutes I've watched in hockey, 3-1, and the game ended 5-4, all in the last 10 minutes with the Golden Knights coming out on top. They were down 3-1 to the Sharks. The Sharks are a bad team this year, but the bottom line is the top of the division with the Golden Knights, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Minnesota Wild. Those are some good hockey teams. Even the St. Louis Blues, when they put it together, can play some hockey. So I don't want to say the worst division like it's horrible. It's not. The Avalanche, I think, can beat anybody in hockey, as can the Golden Knights. But this Golden Knights team, Spencer, regardless of what division they play in, they are special. And they prove it time and time again. Mark Stone is an elite hockey player. It's so nice that the first C awarded on this team, because they went without a captain for the first 3 seasons. Now they have one, and it is Mark Stone, and boy, is he deserving of that moniker. This guy plays 2 ways. He's great on the power play. He's great on the penalty kill. He is just a great hockey player, and probably of the elite hockey players in the National Hockey League, the least talked about of being an elite player, because you have like guys like Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid and Alex Ovechkin that are so over the top, you don't think of Mark Stone. You should. And I'll tell you what, Alex Tuck finally has come into his own, Spencer. Spencer.
Oh, wow.
This guy is scoring left and right. I've said for years he has some of the softest hands in the NHL, and eventually we'll see it since he's been up here with as a rookie in his first season. This guy he's got the size, the presence. He got hurt last year and he fell off a little bit, and people wondered, wow, is this going to be what happened to Alex Tuck? What's happened to Alex Tuck is he is making himself an elite hockey player. Alex Tuck's going to be an all-star this season potentially, and he is something special. And of course, you go down that roster. I know Max Pacioretty's gotten under your skin a few times here and there, but he is a gritty hockey player. He might take just errant shots, but I still think he is a big part of this team. And I'll tell you, Spencer, one thing about Max Pacioretty is Mark Stone loves him. And do you want to get rid of a guy that your favorite player loves and works well with and teams up well with? Well, Stone will play with anybody, but I like Max. I like the whole team. I like the chemistry of this team, and the role players on this team are even good. And you've got, spirit in the locker room. You've got tough guys with Ryan Reeves and some of the other players they developed, and picking up the defenseman we picked up in Alex Pietrangelo this year. It was a great move. And of course, we can't talk enough about Shea Theodore, who has in just 2 seasons elevated himself to be one of the top 5 or 6 defensemen in the National Hockey League. This is a good team, a fun team. And now that they're letting fans in, people, whatever you got to pay to go watch the Golden Knights play, pay it. Because again, and another guy, the ageless wonder in Marc-Andre Fleury, they bring in Robin Leonard to replace him last year. He did throughout the postseason for the most part. And this year looked like it was going to be 2 to 3 games for Leonard, 1 game for Fleury. Leonard gets hurt, and Marc-Andre Fleury once again playing the best hockey of his career in the later stages of his career. And with him playing this well and Leonard getting healthy and backing him up, for God's sakes, man, if they're going to win it, Spencer, this might be the best Stanley Cup contending team that Vegas has had since they've been in since the initial season.
Well, since you say that, I'll ask you this as well. The Golden Knights have been good in the first 2 seasons. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals in the first one. So as you've been watching this team, does it feel different from you? Do they still feel like the same team that's good, but it's not going to make it happen in the playoffs? Is there a different factor to them? What is it about this team this year that you like so much?
2 words: Peter DeBoer. Peter DeBoer has given this team a bit of a facelift. Peter DeBoer is a no-nonsense type of player, soft-spoken to the media, tough to get this guy angry. He is even keel, and his players feel that. And Pete DeBoer is not scared to mix up lines, to keep changing things until he finds the right formula. He's been famous throughout his coaching career for finding the right chemistry between players and putting the right lines on the ice. And he has upset a lot of teams, including the Vegas Golden Knights a couple of years ago when they played San Jose. They were clearly a better team. And granted, a lousy thing happened in Game 7. We'll never forget that here. Every Golden Knights fan feels a bit cheated. But Peter DeBoer is the real deal. I love Gerard Gallant. Gerard Gallant's an ex-Detroit Red Wing, Spencer, and I think he was the perfect guy to start the expansion team. We might see him do that up in Seattle. Who knows? But the difference is Peter DeBoer is the real deal. This guy is in line to win a Stanley Cup, and I think he has the goods and the wherewithal and the knowledge to take this team over the top. But that, to me, is the X factor, not what's on the ice, the guy calling the shots behind the bench. And I think we've all embraced him and realized why that move was made now, because you could grab a guy like Pete DeBoer. He's one of the best coaches in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and I was on top of the Gallant firing like right when it happened. That it was a little bit of a weird timing. Of course, they were in Canada, so none of our normal guys could cover it. So that's where the issue was. But I think the idea of firing him was absolutely correct. He was not getting it done against the best teams. And we know Peter DeBoer can do that. For me, it is Pietrangelo. And that sounds like the obvious answer, and it is. But last year, you have this wild card in Shea Theodore, who's this defenseman that can score. But it kind of got figured out. The kind of defenses adjusted. But you can't adjust when Shea Theodore and Pietrangelo are on the ice at the same time. He started the season a little slow offensively. He's picking that up, and he's brand new to the team, right? This developed team, established team that has been very far in the playoffs, most of the players. We haven't changed the team drastically in the past 3 years, in my opinion. So when you have him and when he's going in full stride, that could actually be enough to take them through the Stanley Cup. And Mark Stone is playing well above where he was last year. We were all a little nervous when they traded for him, and he was playing okay, disappeared in the playoffs, disappeared in the power play, but he's in there now. And I think we put
and he's even throwing punches, Spencer.
Yeah, and I think we put too much high expectations on brand new players in hockey. It's one of the more complex. I mean, your chemistry has to be so on point with these guys. This puck is flying around like crazy. It's not basketball where you can pass it around. Guys are doing their own thing. No, you have to be one cohesive unit. So that was some Golden Knights talk, and now I would like to transition into some free agency, and I'm actually going to bring this my dad on for this because I'd have no idea. Again, I never know what the Raiders are doing. I gave myself high expectations, and they've just completely blew it away again because Mike Mayock is literally just one of the worst GMs I've ever seen in my life. They started off by signing Yannick Ngakoue, which is he's instantly the best Raiders defender, which is mostly his fault anyways for having that statement even be true. But now they do something good, and you get Kenyon Drake, who I'm not going to say is bad. They signed him on a 2-year deal worth like $14 million, $11 million guaranteed. Dad, I hope, are you there, Dad? First of all.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So you have the signing of Yannick Ngakoue. Me and you talked about it. We thought that's fantastic. And, their cap space is pretty tight like every other team because the cap space went down 8% this year. And they spend most of it on Kenyon Drake with Josh Jacobs, who's coming off of 2 1,000-yard rushing seasons. What in the world are they thinking?
Well, with that signing, who knows? I don't think they need to get a Kenyon Drake, but maybe they're trying to put a little bit of pressure on Jacobs. I mean, even though he had a 1,000-yard season this past season, his yards per carry did go down. And then we saw him get into a bit of a trouble here in Vegas when he almost got a DUI, but didn't. So, yeah, I don't know if they just figure on bringing Kenyon Drake in on third downs, that they don't like Jacobs on third downs with his catching ability. I don't know, but I think we needed to spend the money elsewhere.
Oh, I agree with you. But we don't really have the ability to do that now. And we've also lost 4 or 3 of our offensive starters. Richie Incognito was released and then re-signed. They did sign Nick Martin, the center from the Texans. And they did sign Denzel Good. So I think that's who they're rolling with next year, which is fine. But you also have this issue of letting Nelson Aguilar go. So that means that Henry Ruggs is going to be wide receiver number 1, which Brian, we all know cannot be the number 1 receiver. So what are they doing? Like, what is the plan, the master plan here? I hope you can give me the answer for that, Dad.
We're in big trouble with wide receiver right now. We really have no number 1. Looks like they're bringing in John Brown, who's a good player, but he's not a number 1 guy. I hope they have a plan in place during the draft. Because if they do not give Derek Carr some weapons, a number 1 weapon, we as a team I don't even think we'll win 8 games. No way.
I want to say, first of all, hello, Mark. How are you? Good to talk to you again.
Hello.
And great to have you on the show. Mark is a seasoned sports mind. I've gotten a chance to know him, and I love listening to his analogies because he really has a passion, and especially for the Raiders and stuff, and it's pretty cool. I will say though, Mark, I disagree with you and Spencer. Not on Nelson Aguilar. I think there was a huge mistake to let him go. I do think Ruggs has the ability to step into not maybe a number 1 role, but a number 2 role. But you guys are forgetting the number 1 receiver on this team last year and this year is Darren Waller. And to say that you don't have a number 1 receiver when you've got one of the upper echelon and best tight ends in the National Football League is a mistake. Darren Waller is uncoverable. He has come into his own in the last 2 seasons, and he is as good as any wide receiver, tight end, just about. I'm going to say just about in the game. He is a primary target, and he gives Derek Carr a tremendous option and takes pressure off of wide receivers. There's not a team in the National Football League that wouldn't love to have Darren Waller. So you got to take that into consideration when you are talking about the receiving corps. John Brown, I agree with you, a good receiver, a role player, not a number 1 guy. They do need to find somebody to go out there to take the heat off Ruggs because Ruggs won't get it done on his own. He'll make a spectacular catch, and then he'll drop a 5-yard pass over the middle, and that's been his moniker. But with Darren Waller, you're okay. But guys, to me, the biggest thing in free agency and the biggest need in this team is what wins championships, and that is defense. As Spencer has pointed out so many times on his show and ranted on Out of Line in every show, that this team, that most of the defensive front on this team would they be special teams players on other teams, and yet they're here. Other than maybe Max, who I do like, and I do think he would start on most teams. That's it, man. They are empty. Since they got rid of Khalil Mack, this team hasn't had a presence on the defensive front yet. And without a presence on the defensive front and having to face teams like the Kansas City Chiefs twice a season, you're in a lot of trouble. And now you've got San Diego, who's got a quarterback that can do some damage too. if this team doesn't shore up that defense, and for God's sakes, if the pass rush doesn't get there, holy cow, are you rolling the dice with that secondary? That the bottom line is they need to make a brand of Swiss cheese and name it after the Raiders secondary, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. And I would say bet the over every game next year on the Raiders because they are Swiss cheese. They will give up big plays, and there will be lots of scoring against the Raiders next year.
Yeah, the Raiders have gotten significantly worse this offseason. I don't know I think they had 7 wins last year. That right now, if
they were 8-8, they didn't go 8-8.
If they went 8-8 last year, if the team that they have now on this roster goes out next year, this is a 3-win team. If the offense is getting worse, which it is, and the defense only has Yannick Ngakoue, they're not going to get back to 8 wins. They're not going to even get close. All the other teams in the division are getting better, and we're getting worse. I don't think anybody they can take in the first round can even change that as well. We have to fire everybody. I know it sounds crazy, but I like John Gruden as a coach, but if it means that Mike Mayock has to stay in that seat, then they both got to go. There's other coaches out there that can get a winning culture. And so, Dad, can you give me any sort of hope, or am I just speaking the truth?
Well, I'm looking at the free agent acquisitions now, and they did spend some money on defense with a Quentin Jefferson, who's an okay player, but he's not going to rush the quarterback or anything like that. He'll probably shore up the run defense a little bit. The one that's interesting to me is Solomon Thomas. This guy was a high draft pick for the 49ers. He's had some injury problems, but he had high hopes. He's still a young guy. I think this guy can still get some pressure on the quarterback, and I'm excited to see what he can do for the Raiders.
Yeah, I'll be looking at Solomon highlights all night trying to make myself happy again, but I don't know if I can make it happen. Thanks for joining the show, Dad. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me.
Always good to talk to you, Mark.
So we'll go over a lot more free agency here. Looks like we can start with Mitchell Trubisky. I know it's not a huge name, but he was a second overall pick only 4 years ago. He's going to the Bills on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. It's crazy to think that he's halfway out the door in the NFL after being in this situation where he gets traded or he gets drafted over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. It's almost kind of unfair to him to have those kinds of expectations, and clearly he crumbled. What I think he should do, well, first, when we get into that, do you think his career extends over 3 years? Like, is he in the NFL 4 years from now?
Probably if he's a backup, Spencer. He's, when you've got starting experience in the National Football League, you can be as a backup. Mitchell Trubisky, at times, the one thing he can do, he can run. He's a big guy, and he can tuck the ball away and run. And I think that to spell a quarterback, or if a guy went down for a game or two, yeah, I think he's confident. Believe me, guys have hung around this league like Dwayne. I can name a ton of quarterbacks that have stuck around for a long time as career backups. And I'll tell you what, though, to me, the Bears got significantly worse letting him go and bringing in Andy Dalton. The red pea shooter should have retired 2 years ago. And we saw what he did in Dallas. I don't think it's an upgrade at all. I'm happy being an NFC North fan of the Detroit Lions, of course, being stuck with that. I'm happy that they got rid of Trubisky and bringing Dalton. I think they're going to be worse. But no, as far as Trubisky goes, I think he's in a good position in Buffalo where he can play backup. He's not going to really learn behind a young quarterback like Josh Allen. But I think the point is this guy can come in and do. I think he'll be around in 3 years in the National Football League. Absolutely. Quarterbacks are a premium. And when you've got game experience, 4 years as mostly starter for 4 years, yes, I think that Mitchell Trubisky is an upgrade. Spencer, the one guy I want to mention, and I hope you're going to mention him, is one of the free agent signings that he keeps finding new teams. I think it's his 7th team now. How about the beard, man? How about my favorite quarterback in the National Football League? The best? No way. But Ryan Fitzpatrick is a guy that when you watch him, he plays for the sheer love of the game. If they told him, look, Ryan, you're going to start for the Redskins this year and we're going to pay you $100,000. I'm so sorry. The Washington football team this year, you know what? He'd take $100,000 to play. He is one of the true throwbacks that loves playing the game of football. And how, last year, Spencer, we got to see it here at Allegiant Stadium against the Miami Dolphins when he came in for Tua. and he threw a pass getting his head ripped off 40 yards down the field, and it was an accurate, granted a little bit of a floater, but there was nobody there. He saw the guy, and with his head getting ripped off, he was able to launch the ball 40 yards to complete, and of course, complete the beating of the Miami Dolphins of the Las Vegas Raiders. I love Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I am so thrilled that he's getting another opportunity with another team, and you watch, he will end up being the starter for the Washington football team, and deservedly so. Give him 1 or 2 more seasons, man. I want him to hang around for as long as he can. I love seeing a guy that is unconventional and finds a way to win, and he wins over teammates at every team he goes to. No guy has been as transient as traveled as Ryan Fitzpatrick, and continues to have success wherever he goes. The guy's good for 3 wins for your football team a season. Should he be the 16-game starter? Probably not. Let's be real. Wow. But here's the deal. He is a guy that will come in off the bench cold after sitting half a season and win you 3 games in a row. There's nobody I've ever seen like that.
Well, the truth is, if the Miami Dolphins had just played him throughout the entire season, they'd be in the playoffs. They lost games because of Tua Tagovailoa. I think even in the Raiders game, they had started Tua, and he was just garbage. I think they scored like 0 points in the first half against the definitive worst defense in the league in the Raiders. And then he came in and just won them that football game. And we're also talking about a division that is wide open. They went to the playoffs last year with Alex Smith, who is running on a raw leg.
The worst division in the history of football last year, Spencer, to send an under 500 team to the postseason. That's almost unheard of. You don't see that very often. Every now and again, you see an 8-8 team win a division, but a team that's a couple games under 500 to get to the postseason was amazing. And he's going to the team that actually got to the postseason in the Washington football team. And I'll tell you what, man, I am really excited to watch. But I think they'll be a garbage team for the most part. But again, wherever Ryan Fitzpatrick goes, I tend to tune in because he is truly a football player.
He's must-watch television. So we'll keep going over some more moves here. Will Fuller actually goes to the Miami Dolphins on a 1-year deal, $10 million. It's actually kind of a surprising move for me because cap space is so tight, and you're signing a guy who has not had one fully healthy season, and he's also going to be missing the first game of next season, dating back to last season for performance-enhancing drugs. He had a 6-game suspension. Last one is week 1.
How come they didn't enhance his performance?
Well, actually,
no, he did.
He did.
Well,
he had like 800 yards.
Of course he did, because why? DeAndre Hopkins was gone. Let's be realistic. And I mean, that's why he had such a good season. He was more counted, and he became almost the number 1 receiver over there. They had Brandon Cooks too, but he really was the guy, or supposed to be the guy going into the season. So to me, he should have had 1,200 yards, not 800 yards last year.
Well, kudos at least to the Dolphins for trying to give some weapons to Tua. Looks like they're sticking with them, which they should. He was a rookie last year.
Oh, Tua, I think I think he'll get back into the flow of things and stuff. He was a rookie. Give him a break, and I think Tua will be an okay quarterback in the National Football League. I'll tell you what, I would rather have him than the Red Rifle throwing for me for the Bears. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't know why you're saying that. He's taken the Bengals to the playoffs multiple times. He was 1 game under 500 last year.
Why don't you Google him right now and tell me how many of those playoff games he won? 3 of them were at home, Spencer. You're playing in play.
Also he loses,
but he loses playoff games at home. That's almost sacrilegious. I don't gamble on sports very often. The biggest money I made was betting against the Bengals when they made the playoffs at home with him as their quarterback.
Well, yes, he's not going to win the Bears a Super Bowl, but he can get them back to the playoffs for sure with the defense that they have, and
he can get them to the playground.
I think you have a personal grudge against him. I think. I see AJ Green. He went to the Arizona Cardinals, so I think he was terrible last year. Like, he was one of the worst receivers in the league in terms of separation, everything
old
like that.
And injured.
You think his career is done? I guess that's the real question. He's not going to be the number 1 option for the first time in his career, so he has a chance. We'll see how much he loves the game of football. When you're that age, you got to love the game to continue playing. Like Larry Fitzgerald loves the game of football, so that's why he's been able to be productive for so long. I don't know if I've ever gotten that kind of energy from AJ Green, but
I did earlier in his career. AJ Green, for a while, Spencer, was without question a top 5 receiver in the whole entire league when he was healthy and earlier in his career. And I'll tell you what, some of Andy Dalton's numbers that were gaudy at times were because he would throw the ball up and AJ Green would go up and make spectacular catches while he was double covered. It wouldn't be the great pass of the red pistol. It would be the great catch of AJ Green. But I think Father Time is knocking on his door. I'm happy he's getting an opportunity with the Arizona Cardinals, but I don't think they're counting on him for very much, Spencer. Hopefully, they'll get a couple big catches here and there. He can make dynamic catches, but I just think AJ Green's, without question, he's in the absolute twilight of his career.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, it's definitely winding down, but like I said, DeAndre Hopkins opposite of him, he'll have some opportunities. Kyle Rudolph is going to the Giants, which is one of the more confusing moves of the offseason because he left because he didn't want to take a pay cut with the Vikings, and also he didn't want to play second fiddler to Irv Smith, who is their tight end now, and now he's going to be playing second fiddle to Evan Ingram, obviously. So I guess they're going to be running 2 tight end sets. What's what they sold him on. He's been really bad. He's had 2 sub 500 yard seasons the last couple of years, 1 touchdown like the entire season last year. We'll see if he can also revitalize his career. One other thing I want to talk about, because there are some other topics that I want to get your opinions on. Hunter Henry is one of the many signings the Patriots have had this year. He's joining on a 3-year, $37 million contract. I'll just ask you in general, because the Patriots have obviously been the team spending the most amount of money in free agency. Will it matter to them as long as Cam Newton is their quarterback of their team? Can Cam Newton get back and use all these new weapons to get them to the playoffs? Because the Bills are still good. They're not going to be bad next year, I'll tell you that. Is this enough to get them over the hump again without Tom Brady?
Not even close. And I'm really, I don't want to, I'm happy for Cam Newton. At one point in time, Cam Newton was just an absolute physical specimen and a guy that could single-handedly win you a football game. Like, the year he was the MVP of the league and took the Carolina Panthers to the Super Bowl. Amazing. But again, no, Hunter Henry is not enough to move this team over the top. Cam Newton showed me last year that his best years are far behind him. And I was very surprised that the Patriots went out and invested and showed faith in him this year. I'm happy that there's some loyalty there, but if I was a New England Patriots fan, I would be pretty upset. I don't see that team back in the playoffs anytime soon.
Wow, I don't know. We'll
They're
see.
spending a lot of money,
They are.
but you need a trigger man in New England. A trigger man has been the key for them for years and years, and I don't know that Cam Newton can be that trigger man anymore. I just don't see it. He's never been one of the most accurate passers in the league, and the running ability that once was there is gone. The injuries have taken that away from him. So what is he good for other than having knowledge and having one Super Bowl experience? I think it was a disappointment, and I think if I was a Patriots fan right now, I'd be almost as upset as I am being a Lions fan with Jared Goff coming in to run the show for the Lions.
Yeah, and maybe Mac Jones will be an answer for them in the draft.
Hopefully.
Because Cam Newton, they signed him. It doesn't mean he's going to be the starting quarterback next year. Mac Jones will probably be the best landing spot for him if they do end up trading up. But there's one more football news, and then we'll go over actually to some basketball news. They're kind of interrelated a little bit. But this Deshaun Watson thing, I'm not sure if you heard about it. So 2 days ago, a masseuse came out and said he had sexually harassed her. And he came out, and this is his exact quote, the day of, where he found out the statement. So listen to this. As a result of a social media post by a publicly seeking plaintiff's lawyer, I recently became aware of a lawsuit that has apparently been filed against me. I have not yet seen the complaint, but I know this. I have never treated any woman with anything other than the utmost respect. The plaintiff's lawyer claims that this isn't about money, but before filing the suit, he made a baseless 6-figure settlement demand, which I quickly rejected. Unlike him, this isn't about money for me. It's about clearing my name, and I look forward to doing that. So a lot of people thought this was a diversion from the Texans organization to quell any trade talks. Well, the next day, 2 more masseuses came out with their own claims. One of them was actually sexual assault, not sexual misconduct. And now today, it's up to 7 lawsuits, and they're all masseuses with very similar stories. There's even a text message out there which says, I wish I could find it here, but he apologized. So it doesn't look great for him. And what I want to say about the situation is, of course, he's innocent until proven guilty. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to go on his social media posts and call him bad names and all that kind of stuff. But if it's true, he needs to be banned from ever playing in the NFL or any football league ever again. And the reason I say it needs to be this harsh is because we've just saw Josh Jacobs get a DUI with nothing happening. We saw Melvin Gordon for the Broncos running back. He got on camera on a DUI, and they dropped the claims the next day. These football players are getting away with some atrocious stuff. There was a place kicker for the Giants as well, which was like 5 years ago. He admitted to domestic abuse. The team knew about it, and he was not fired. They're going to continue to do these kinds of things as long as there's no punitive action. Let's all remind ourselves, these guys are millionaires and they feel untouchable. So when they see guys, especially like Melvin Gordon, who is not a top running back anymore, Josh Jacobs is only in his 2nd year in the league, and even their cases are being dropped. If Deshaun Watson is able to go through this and just continue to make $25 million a year, we are going to see more things. And it may ramp up because, again, these guys feel like they're on top of the world. They felt that since college when they go through these college campuses, and a lot of them are illegally recruited. We know that. It happens every single year. LSU, the year after they win the national championship, self-ban themselves out of punishment for illegal recruiting. So we know what's going on. There has to be something so harsh that it deters them from actually doing it. Do you agree that if it's true, Deshaun Watson should be banned from ever being a quarterback in the NFL ever again?
I mean, sexual assault, sexual harassment is a suspension for sure. And if it's sexual assault, yeah, Spencer, this has to stop. And this air of invincibility that these NFL players have, an entitlement, is ridiculous. But, you know, you're talking about young kids with a lot of money, man, and you feel untouchable. You think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And yeah, this is really, really disturbing, especially how adamant he was in denying the first one that came out. And then all of a sudden he realized they started coming out of the woodwork, and I commend her for coming out and saying this. And because you do put yourself out there in a big way, you're going to get harassed, you're going to take a bunch of grief. And is it about money? Well, partially. You know, come on, man. You know when something like this happens, there's a chance for a big payday. So I'm not going to hide from that, and I'd say it on my show, but I don't care about that. The bottom line is this absolutely has to stop. The NFL should start standing for not for long, that we're going to put up with the crap that's going on in this league. I mean, still, you know, it's kind of weird that almost no punishment to Tyreek Hill, you know, because he is such a dynamic player. And I'll tell you what, as far as watching him and purely on the football field, I have almost as much fun watching him as I had watching Barry Sanders play in Detroit. He might be the most electrifying player to play in the National Football League since Barry Sanders. And then you got Kareem Hunt, who's over now in the Cleveland Browns, getting accolades and all this stuff. These guys were abusers, man. They're known and convicted abusers. When I say convicted, they were basically found guilty for abusing. Settlements happened, and they're back in the National Football League. And then you got a guy like Ray Rice, who never got back in the league, that was caught on camera, admitted he was wrong. His wife came out to try to speak to him. Ironically, Spencer, they are still together and married. There's never been problems since then. But you know what? Ray Rice was at the tail end of his career. Right. He didn't have that much value. Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill are in the prime of their careers, as is Deshaun Watson. So it's going to be a very interesting to find out how he gets back on the field. The one thing he might have done by doing all this is he might get his wish and get the hell out of Houston, which is what he wants. But Spencer, I'll tell you what, like I said, if the assault actual charge carries merit and has happened, get him the hell out of the National Football League. This has to stop, period.
I totally agree with you. And Joe Mixon was also caught on tape famously for knocking a woman out with a full force punch. Yep. I'm sure you guys remember that video. Is
carrying the ball for awful. Cincinnati still.
Absolutely. And he got a huge contract just last year. Again, that's not going to stop until we actually tell these guys that you can't do this. And the only way they're going to be able to tell no is if they get real punishment for it. Money is not a punishment for these guys because they make more money than we could ever imagine. $600,000 fine, me and you would probably not be able to pay very quickly, but for them, it's a game check. And I also want to say in a bit of a related story, I'm not sure if you heard about Miles Leonard, but he went on Twitch. It's like where you stream video games, and he had this anti-Semitic slur that came out. I want to hear your opinion on this because he's going to get traded to OKC and he's going to be released. So he went all the way. I mean, he got canceled, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. How do you feel about this? Should he ever have a job in the NBA again? I'll hear your opinion first, and I'll bounce it back to myself because I think you'll be surprised what I have to say.
I would say stupidity is not an excuse for using that terminology, Spencer. And both of us being Jewish American men, there is an absolute zero tolerance. I am in no way going to say that it is a harsher than the N-word, but the N-word is you have to admit and call it what is. It's acceptable amongst the culture themselves, because in a joking manner you hear that thrown around. Never is it acceptable for a Caucasian man to use that term, but we do hear that. You never hear a Jewish person calling another Jewish person or even joking around about that word, the K word. It is ridiculous. ridiculous. It is sickening. It is gross. It is as offensive as any word that you can think of. And I'm talking about every four-letter superlative out there. This is horrible. This man should not only not be allowed in the National Basketball Association again for that one slur, but this man, I'm amazed that he hasn't publicly come out and had a much greater apology than the lame-ass excuses he used. He is a buffoon. He is an idiot. He is a racist, and this guy's got to go. To say I don't understand the word itself, then don't use it, dude. I'm sorry your IQ must be that of a grasshopper, but my God in heaven, Spencer, I am so wickedly opposed and offended by what this man said and the way he used it, and even worse, his half-hearted, fleeting apology. Disgusting. This man should not be traded to anyone. He should just simply be not. And the amazing thing is the owner of the Miami Heat's Jewish, and so is the commissioner of the league. Wow is all. When I first heard it, that was all I could say was my eyes got as big as my forehead, and I said, wow, are you kidding me?
It's true. And I think he did say the word because he just has no idea what
He's
it
an
means.
idiot.
And Julian Edelman came out and offered to take him to Shabbat dinner and stuff like that.
That was great.
But I don't know. I mean, I do feel that the only thing I worry about is that he'll now become the face of anti-Semitism by saying this word.
Okay.
He's what anti-Semitism is. And that is not what anti-Semitism is. Anti-Semitism is the guy who went to that synagogue in Pittsburgh and shot it up. That's what real anti-Semitism is. So I think that if you make this the face of him, like, look, we're progressing a lot further. And we just saw these potentially racially motivated shootings in Atlanta. That's what real racism is, not this kind of faux pas, always making $10 million in OKC, not making them in Miami now. Whoop-de-doo. So I hope the focus isn't solely on that. We'll have to see. It is disgusting, but he will get another job. He is getting close. He's 29 years old now. He'll be a free agent this year. And he probably will make another team when we've all forgotten about this. It's just kind of sad to see that this kind of goes on.
It's sad, and I just want to end on saying this, Spencer. The reason I am so adamant about him not being allowed to play in the National Basketball Association after that is because you can't make it okay. You can't bring that word to the forefront. There are many kids in this country that had no idea what that word was or even existed, and now are probably utilizing that word. I've heard it. I have heard it used in the past couple weeks more than I've ever heard it used probably in my life, and it is when it's called attention to this degree, people say, that's offensive. Now, if I don't like a Jewish person, I'm just going to call him the K word. That's why, to me, not that I do not think Will Leonard is the biggest anti-Semite out there. I don't even think he might not even be anti-Semitic. He was foolish and he's stupid. And that's what I say. He's an idiot. He's a buffoon. But the point is that it cannot go unpunished, because we've got to make sure that word is known as being vile. And by getting him out of the league and not, you say, look, man, it was a mistake, but it was a catastrophic mistake as far as you're concerned. See ya.
For sure. And I want to thank Anthony Kim, my buddy from high school, for checking in. He says, I agree. No team should sign him. He needs to take up Julian Edelman's offer. Thanks for listening, Anthony. And I agree with you as well. I do want to end the show. I don't know this guy personally, and I don't think you do either, but I was not part of his era. But I did want to mention that the marvelous Marvin Hagler did pass away at the age of 66. So I wanted to send my condolences out to him. And the one thing that I think is worth noting, that there were some lies going around that he may have died from complications due to the COVID-19 vaccine. Basically just part of this rhetoric to tell people not to get it. I do not agree with that. And his wife came out and adamantly disagreed with it as well. But Marvin Hagler represents a time back in the day where boxing actually mattered. And I don't know, do you have any favorite memories from the guy when he was going?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I love the hitman Tommy Hearns, of course, being from the Motor City and the famous Emmanuel Stewart's Kronk gym in Detroit. And I'll tell you what, he made mincemeat of him in the ring, 2 punches and knocked him out. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, pound for pound, Spencer. I did get to watch him when I was about your age. And I'll tell you what, he was one of the most exciting fighters to watch. And I'll tell you what, there's probably a handful of fighters that other fighters getting ready to fight him actually feared. He was one of those guys that was feared by fighters. And I think guys on their way up ducked him a little bit because he could end your career. I mean, the epic battle with Tommy Hearns and with Sugar Ray Leonard, some of the greatest bouts I've ever seen in my life. He was what made boxing great back in its heyday. He was one of those people. And again, to overstate it, pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters in the history of that sport. God rest his soul. Thank you, Marvin, for entertaining us the way that you did, because you were back when I really loved watching professional boxing. He was right there in that heyday, and that class of boxer with guys like Pepino Cuevas and Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, who I mentioned. He was right there and a lot of fun to watch, and he might have been better than all of them.
Yeah, and that's when boxing, I think boxing actually was dead when Mayweather took the fight with Conor McGregor. This loudmouth from UFC, it was used to be so hard to get to the top, to face the heavyweight champions, arguably the greatest of all time in Mayweather, because he never lost a fight, of course. And when you can go straight to it and you've never been in a boxing ring, then everything goes out the door. That's why these weird side events that are going on between these amateur boxers are becoming popular. That's why being the champion doesn't mean anything anymore. And meanwhile, the UFC is just exploding onto the scene and getting more popular every single week. Since the pandemic, it may have gotten more popular, which is insane. It's sad to see, because I do love boxing, but I can't watch it anymore, other than Jahai Tucker, who joined my show, a young up-and-coming boxer who I appreciate. I'll only watch him, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he can get back to its glory day, but I have no idea how they can put integrity back into the game, because more of these weird boxing matches are starting to happen. But that looks like it's all the time that we have, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining the Delivering Sports Show once again. It was a really awesome show. And, you can see us on Sunday as well. We'll be at why is my
We'll
mind?
be Kickers
Sports and
Gaming
Bar.
and Sports Bar. Yeah, 8 o'clock Sunday morning, 931 North Las Vegas Boulevard. Come on down and check me and Spencer out. We have a lot of fun down there. It is a great establishment. We're giving away free orange juice and donuts at every show. So come on down, and they've got Bloody Mary and mimosa specials during the show. And it is a great place to watch. Like right now, especially with March Madness, 17 big screens, man, 15 gaming machines. Get down there and check us out.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Loved it, Spencer. And by the way, thank you. Spencer Ostrovsky, honestly, on his way up. This kid knows sports. He is your boy, Spencer, man.
Yep. Many more Fridays, many more Delivering Sports shows, guys. We'll see you next time.
Coach Harvey Hyde is heard right here. AM 1400, KSHP, North Las Vegas, and KSHP.com.
Disaster, according to Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Anytime we're dealing with the massive amount of influx of people coming across the border, that would be a humanitarian crisis and a big challenge. Now knowing the magnitude of the spread of COVID in these areas, this is occurring during the course of a pandemic, and it's endangering lives as we speak.
The governor speaking to Fox News. He also reported that 10% of migrants being held at a facility in Midland, Texas, have tested positive for COVID-19. And New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is facing harassment allegations from another woman, this time from a current aide. The woman, Alyssa McGrath, told the New York Times about her experiences in the governor's office.